Welcome to Stas Plane. Today we are going to talk about the conspiracy theories surrounding the Titanic. Do not forget to leave a like in this video if you liked what you saw and to subscribe to our channel. You can also check out our other videos. Let's get to the point now. The front compartments of the Titanic flooded as a result of damage to the hull plates below the waterline on the starboard side, sustained in the collision with the iceberg on April 14, 1912. 2 hours and 40 minutes later, the ship sank, killing roughly 1,496 people from cold or drowning. Numerous conspiracy theories about the catastrophe have been put up since then. Experts in the field have disproved these beliefs. The first theory is called the pack ice theory. Since the pack ice explanation acknowledges that the sinking was an accident, it is not a conspiracy theory. Still, the great majority of historians find it unconvincing, and it deviates from the widely held theory. Former Ice Pilotage Service member Captain L.M. Collins concluded, after considering 3 pieces of evidence, his own ice navigation experience and witness statements from the 2 post-disaster inquiries, that what the Titanic struck was low-lying pack ice rather than an iceberg. He delves deeper into the events in his 2003 book, The Sinking of the Titanic, The Mystery Solved. The whole night of the sinking, there were no reports of haze. But at 11:30 p.m., the 2 lookouts saw what they thought to be haze on the horizon, reaching about 20 degrees on either side of the ship's bow. Collins thinks that the area they observed, 4 to 5 miles ahead of the ship, was a strip of pack ice rather than haze. Every witness described the ice in a unique way. Lookouts were 60 feet high, Quartermaster Rowe was 100 feet high on deck, and 4th Officer Boxall was only extremely low in the sea, on the starboard side next to the darkened bridge. According to the witness descriptions, an optical phenomenon that is well known to ice navigators occurs when the flat sea and intense cold distort the appearance of objects near the waterline, making them appear to be the height of the ship's lights, approximately 60 feet above the surface near the bow and 100 feet high alongside the superstructure. The Titanic turned by turning her rudder over 1/3 of the way from the bow, crushing her starboard side on an iceberg. In a matter of minutes, the ship would have flooded, capsized, and sank as a result, harming the starboard side of the hull and maybe the superstructure. In his 1998 book, Titanic, the Ship That Never Sank, Robin Gardner put forth one of the most complex and contentious hypotheses on the sinking of the Titanic. Gardner concludes that the ship that sank was actually the sister ship Olympic, which was disguised as the Titanic as part of an insurance scam by its owners, the International Mercantile Marine Group. This group, headed by American financier J.P. Morgan, had purchased the White Star Line in 1902. Gardner bases this conclusion on a number of coincidences and events that occurred in the months, days, and hours before the Titanic sank. Don't forget to leave a like in this video if you liked what you saw and to subscribe to our channel. You can also check out our other videos. Many of Gardner's assertions were refuted by researchers Bruce Beveridge and Steve Hall in their 2004 book, Olympic and Titanic: The Truth Behind the Conspiracy. Many of Gardner's assertions were refuted by researchers Bruce Beveridge and Steve Hall in their 2004 book, Olympic and Titanic: The Truth Behind the Conspiracy. Author Mark Chirnside has also questioned the switch idea in a very serious way. As for the idea itself, British historian Gareth Russell describes it as so painfully ridiculous that one can only lament the thousands of trees which lost their lives to provide the paper on which it has been articulated. He observes that it would be practically impossible to switch the sister ships covertly in a week due to their notable differences in interior architecture and design. Additionally, a switch would not be financially advantageous because the ship's owners could have easily caused damage to the vessel while it was docked, by starting a fire, for example, and then collected the insurance money from that accident. This would have been far less dangerous and foolish than taking thousands of people and their belongings out into the middle of the Atlantic and slamming her into an iceberg. Conspiracy theorists claim that the Titanic was deliberately sunk in order to crush resistance to the Federal Reserve Bank's establishment. A number of the world's richest individuals, such as Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Straus, and John Jacob Astor IV, were reportedly against the establishment of a U.S. central bank, and they were on board when the Titanic set sail on her maiden voyage. There is no proof that Astor, Guggenheim, or Strauss opposed Morgan's proposals for centralized banking. On the contrary, there is evidence that they were in favor of the notion. Throughout the sinking, all three men perished. According to conspiracy theories, J.P. Morgan, the 74-year-old billionaire who founded the renowned banking company, planned for the men to board the ship before it sank in order to kill them. Notwithstanding his creation of General Electric, U.S. Steel, and International Harvester, Morgan, dubbed the Napoleon of Wall Street, was largely responsible for the near-total rescue of the American financial system during the Panic of 1907. In addition to owning the International Mercantile Marine, which in turn owned the White Star Line, Morgan did play a role in the establishment of the Federal Reserve. Having witnessed the Titanic's 1911 launch, Morgan had reserved a luxury apartment including a dedicated promenade deck and a bathroom featuring custom-made cigar holders. Reportedly, he had a reservation for the ship's inaugural voyage, but he chose to postpone it and stay in the French resort town of Aix-les-Bains to take advantage of his sulfur baths and morning massages. Theorists who believe he understood the ship's fate have increased the amount of evidence supporting their theory that he abruptly canceled. Experts on the Titanic, George Behe, Don Lynch, and Ray Lepian, have all challenged this notion by offering more widely accepted explanations for why Morgan canceled his trip. An alternate idea put up by conspiracy theorist Stu Peters claims the Rothschilds were responsible for both the Federal Reserve and the sinking of the Titanic. In addition, Peters said that the Ocean Gate submarine was purposefully compromised to keep its own passengers from learning that a controlled demolition, rather than an iceberg, was what brought down the Titanic. Researchers studying the Titanic kept debating the reasons and mechanisms behind the ship's disintegration. A Night to Remember author Walter Lord said that the Titanic assumed a posture that was absolutely perpendicular just prior to her catastrophic descent. The belief that the Titanic broke into two pieces at or near the surface was largely uncontested even after Robert Ballard's 1985 discovery of the wreck. Paintings by renowned marine artist Ken Marshall and the depiction of the ship in James Cameron's Titanic both showed the ship reaching a steep angle before the breakup. Although there is still disagreement among experts on whether the Titanic collapsed from the top down or from the bottom up, most agreed that the aft expansion joint, which was intended to let the hull bend in a seaway, had little to no effect in the ship's disintegration. In 2005, a History Channel expedition ventured to the Titanic's resting place. The team examined two sizable portions of the Titanic's keel, located directly below the breakpoint of the ship. During the examination, the crew analyzed the debris, and with the assistance of naval architect Roger Long, they created a revised breakup scenario. These findings were later showcased in the 2006 television documentary titled Titanic's Final Moments: Missing Pieces. The assertion that the Titanic's angle at the moment of her disintegration was far smaller than previously believed, according to Long, no more than 11 degrees, was one of the main features of this new idea. Long speculated that the Titanic's disintegration may have started with the ship's aft expansion joint prematurely failing, which eventually made the death toll higher by accelerating the ship's sinking quicker than expected. The better design of the expansion joints of the Britannic, the sister ship of the Titanic, the History Channel hired JMS Engineering to create a brand new computer simulation in order to investigate Long's idea in more detail. Long's suspicions were partly disproved by the simulation, the results of which were presented in the 2007 documentary Titanic's Achilles' Heel. It showed that the expansion joints of the Titanic were robust enough to withstand all stresses that the ship could reasonably be expected to encounter while in service, and that they even exceeded their design specifications during the sinking. The inclusion of expansion joints in the superstructure, which was positioned above the strength deck, or B deck, and therefore above the top of the structural hull girder, is crucial to note. Therefore, the expansion joints meant nothing for the hull's support. They had nothing to do with the hull cracking. The hull bent or shattered beneath them, and they just split and opened up. Titanic's Last Secrets, written by Brad Matson in 2008, supports the expansion joint idea. One typical overlook is that as the hull started to stress, the forward expansion joint, over which numerous funnels stay crossed, opened, causing the first funnel to fall at a very shallow angle. The stays broke when the joint's opening extended. The ship suddenly performed a sharp turn, toppling the unsupported funnel onto the starboard bridge wing due to her forward motion. The idea that the Titanic partially landed on the ice shelf under the waterline when she struck the iceberg and may have damaged the keel and underbelly is one that may explain the hull's fracture. It was discovered later on in the sinking that Boiler Room 4 leaked from below the floor grates as opposed to above the watertight bulkhead. This would be consistent with further damage affecting the hull's integrity near the keel. According to one report, a fire started in one of the coal bunkers on the Titanic around 10 days before the ship sailed and raged there for a few days afterward. Steamship fires were quite common because the coal would spontaneously catch fire. To tackle these, fire hoses were used to put out the fires, and the coal had to be moved to another bunker and removed in order to feed it into the furnace. Because of this incident, some writers have theorized that the fire worsened the iceberg collision's impact by weakening the hull's structural integrity and a crucial bulkhead. Sinan Maloney has proposed that the Titanic may have been steaming at full speed ahead of the accident despite ice warnings because of attempts to put out the fire by shoving burning coals into the engine furnaces. Most specialists don't agree. According to Samuel Halpern, the watertight bulkhead would not have been sufficiently weakened by the bunker fire to cause it to collapse. Another theory holds that because of the slight port list caused by the coal moving within the ship before it collided with the iceberg, the coal bunker fire prolonged the Titanic's life during the sinking and kept it from rolling over to starboard after the impact. Leading authorities on the Titanic have released an extensive refutation of Maloney's assertions. Do not forget to leave a like in this video if you liked what you saw and to subscribe to our channel. You can also check out our other videos.